So when we break it down and we think about the simplicity of life, we realize that there has to be something that connects us. There has to be something that is a part of us. Because if there wasn't something that was a part of us, there was no way that we could communicate. There is no way there could be a common understanding or a way that we could interact with each other. So as we explore this idea of communication, we come from the aspect that we know that there's a power and a presence. We don't know what it is. We've given it all these names: God, Buddha, Jesus, Great Spirit, Almighty. We could call it the box. It doesn't matter what the name is, because the name would limit it. The name would stop it from being all that it is, because it is unlimited. But we do know that whatever it is, it pervades in and through and as all things. It is the seen and the unseen, and it is that which is constantly creating more of itself and experiencing itself in and through and as all things. So one of the things that I've become very clear about is that we did not come forth into human physical form to be in a cave and be recluse. We did not come forth in human form to sit in silence and meditate all day long. We came into human form to come together to co-create a higher expression of whatever we choose to be. And so in order to do that type of creation, we have to use a sense of purity in our thought that we use as we watch every word that we speak. So one of the things I say from the platform most of the time is that we try our best at Agape to take ourselves and become drama-free. Because think about the idea, if we could live drama-free, we would be really centered in our pureness, in our oneness. So the question is, how do we do that? Several years ago, a colleague of mine in Santa Rosa wrote this thing called Respectful Communication. His name is Edward Viljoen. And I want to use that as a talking point today. So we're actually going to go through, what does it mean to be respectful in our communication? And the first one I'm going to go to is that if you have a problem with me, come to me. Come to me privately so that you and I can get clarity. Because the idea of coming to me is not that one of us has to be right or wrong. It's just that, think about this. We're all so very, very unique that we have different points of reference. Every one of us is coming from a different perspective. We have a different life experience. We have different genes. We have different genetics. We have different ethnicity. And with all of that, we bring in a perspective. So that everything that we are experiencing is simply a matter of opinion. I have an opinion. You have an opinion, you have an opinion, and that's all it is. So what happens when two people get together and there becomes an issue between them, it's a misunderstanding of the opinions that are going on. So the way to deal with that is that if I have a problem, I will come to you so that we can clarify it. Not to be right, not to be wrong, but to clarify so that we can form a common basis from which to go forth on. And again, it reverts here. The first one is, if you have a problem, come to me. And then if I have a problem, I will come to you. So that becomes the groundwork of the relationship we're building. This is an idea, this whole idea of respectful communication is something you can use with yourself, with your family, with your life partner, with your children. You can use this in the corporate world. It is generic. And when you do this, you're going to find that your clarity of communication is going to simplify your life. So when we have problems, we go to the person we're having a problem with, and we arrange that agreement. Here's the next one. This is a big one. If someone has a problem with me and they come to you, send them to me. Do you hear that? So if someone comes to you and says, you know, Lee's doing this and it's really bothering me, you say, you know, that's very interesting, and here, why don't you go see Lee about that? You don't even go any further into the story. You do not give them the opportunity to take whatever their opinion is and drop it on you. You simply say to them, go see Lee. I know he'll listen. And it goes vice versa. If someone comes to me and says, I have a problem with you, I will simply say, please go see Jean. I'm sure she'll listen and the two of you can get clarity on it. Here's the next one. If someone consistently comes to you or me, and they keep doing this, and they keep saying, I got this problem with someone, I got this problem with someone, then you would simply say, hey, come with me. Let me take you over to Lee, and Lee will be happy. You literally walk them over to the person. You're not going to give them the chance to dump on you or to dump their stuff out, to put that, I'm going to call it poison, because it really is not dealing in truth. It's not dealing in love, and why would we want that in our lives? So it becomes a real simple thing. You ask them to go see the person. If they don't go see the person, here, let me help you go see it. If they don't want to do it, you simply look at them and say, well, you know what? It's obviously not that important, because if you don't want to talk to the person who's involved with, and you won't let me walk you over to him, then really it's something that I don't think that needs to be discussed, period. That is truly living in a state of self-love. Because in self-love, you're saying to yourself, I will only deal with that I can control, and that is a loving expression. And to be caught up in a gossip about, in other words, I call that triangulation. When there becomes the tripod, it doesn't work. So we want to eliminate that one leg and put everyone on two legs so that relationships are only two-way. Here's another one. Please don't interpret me. Don't interpret everything I say. If you do not have enough information, please ask me for greater clarity. Ask me for more facts. Ask me for examples so that the clarity can come. This way it takes out any assuming. And so then we go to, on matters that are unclear, do not feel pressure to interpret my feelings or thought. Many, many times, if you are in a position of leadership and there are people working below you, they will simply hear what you say, they will interpret it for you. It may not be the way you want, and they will go out and implement that. Anyone experienced that before? Anyone do it? I've done it. In the corporate world, I heard my boss say this, and then later on I would go out and say, well, you know, the president said this, and I would put my slant on it. And sometimes I would get in trouble. I would get talked to, sometimes yelled at, because I interpreted something I was not clear on. Does that make sense? You see, always go for that little bit more information, because if you seek more clarity, you don't have to put out any fires in the future. I will be careful how I interpret you, and if I'm unclear, I will ask you. See, it's always the yin and the yang. It's always I will do this and then you. You see, it's both ways. It's always a two-way street because there's a flow of energy. It's a give and a take. It's always a give and a take. Here's a big one. If something is confidential, do not tell me. I do not care what it is. If someone says to you, I'm telling you this in confidence, you do not tell another living soul. To do so is to violate your word, and your word is what creates. Listen to this one. If it's confidential, don't ask me to tell you. How many times in work you'll know someone knows something? Hey, it's okay, you can tell me, you can tell me. No. If you know something's confidential, you don't ask to be told. It's in confidence. You see, when we look at that and we want to know something in confidence, we think there's a power outside of ourselves. We don't accept the fact that we are the individualization of the creative force of the universe and that we don't need to know what's going outside of ourselves. We only need to be concerned with where are we coming from. And as we come from that place, it doesn't matter what's happening. We get what we put out. Here's a real big one. I do not read unsigned letters or notes. I do not respond to unnamed complaints. Some of them might begin with, I have heard several people saying. I guarantee you if I get anonymous emails, trash. I guarantee when people come to me and say a group of people have said something, I totally disregard it. Because it absolutely has no value based on how I live my life. Because I live my life on the basis that I am open to receive from an individual any type of comment, critique, input, suggestion that they might be able to give. But the clear thing is, they have to give it to me. It doesn't have any worth if they don't have a direct relationship with me. If they're going to someone else, that's hearsay, that's gossip. Ain't listening. And trust me, I get a lot of that. And I'm sure you do too. A lot of people want to make a point and they're afraid of making the point for themselves. And what they do is they'll say, I heard so many people have said this, thinking it adds weight to it. If people can't give their name and say it for themselves, in my world, it has absolutely no weight at all. Here's another one, great one. Please don't hint to me, hoping I will understand your need or know what you meant to hear. I prefer you ask exactly what you mean. One of the things I teach, especially in relationships, and everything is a relationship. When we have a relationship with our spouse, with our children, with our parents, with another member of the community, with our boss, with people that might work with us or people work for us, what is it? We expect them to read our minds. And the idea, this is the most beautiful one you can write down today. Ask clearly for what you want when you want it. Because if you do not ask, no one will know. If you do not ask, the power that you are can't accept it into you and birth it into your experience. Remember, we're all individual creators. And remember, our word creates for us. And so when I declare that I am going to live in this perfect home, I have to be specific about that home. I have to ask that home. I have to be clear about what I want in that home. I have to be clear to communicate that to my spouse, to make sure there's an agreement there because we are co-creating a home together. And when I ask for what I want and I'm direct about it, I'm not fuzzy about it, I don't leave the details out of it. I'm very clear in what I want. I don't hint at it. It will demonstrate. Someone will say, guess what I'm thinking? I'm sorry, I don't have the time. I'm sorry, you must be confusing me for someone who gives a hoot. You know what I'm saying? Hinting is the worst type of situation. Because if you have a relationship with someone, that relationship should be steeped from the standpoint, I know who I am. I'm a powerful creator, and I know who you are. You are a powerful creator. And so let's get together and talk about how we can create this thing that's with us together. And that must be through a directness. It can't be hinting, because when you're hinting, you're not using the law of the power within. I will not hint to you hoping you will understand my need or know what I meant you to hear. I will try to say exactly what I mean. As good as I think I am, I have a lot of room for improvement in this area. If you think you're perfect in an area, then I invite you to go back and think about it again. because each of us has room to expand and to become more of. We had a retreat yesterday. We had 17 people at the retreat, and one of the exercises was on forgiveness. And in that exercise, several people says, well, I really don't have anything to forgive. And I simply made the statement, think deeper. Just be with it for a moment. Think about what comes up that bothers you. What comes up that brings you remorse, regret, causes you sadness. Because if you think about it, you will find that there is yet more work to do. Because forgiveness, as being clear, is a moment-by-moment process. Parking lot or hallway griping is poisonous. If you need to complain, please do it with the intention of healing it, and even then, tell only the one who can do something about it. You ever hear water cooler talk? Let's get by the wall. You know what the boss is doing? Da 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 da. It's poison. It doesn't feed anything. Remember, we talked about this last week. The truest way to create is to make a decision on something you want, to set that intention so clear, and then to think, speak, feel, and act as if it were done. And as you do that, it will be created. You will have that experience. But if you go and you complain, are you speaking toward the intention? No, you're going in a completely opposite direction. You are literally digging it up. So when you complain, what you're doing is you're saying to the universal law, give me more of what I'm complaining about. My boss is treating me like junk. And you complain to everybody you know, and guess what? Your boss comes out, you're going to get more junk thrown at you. It's the law. It works that way. It's that law of attraction. It's that idea of reciprocality. When in doubt, just say it. The only dumb question is the one that doesn't get asked. If a question comes up, there's a reason it came up. It came up because there's a desire within you to have an idea from someone else so that you can form your own conclusion based on having additional facts brought into your life. So if there's a question, ask the question, because then you can have the fact. You can have more of the information that allows you to make your own personal decision. And facts are different than opinions. Too many times we go out and we say something as fact, and all we've gathered are the opinions of others that are totally distorted by their prior experience, and we come to this lifelong belief, and there's absolutely no truth. There's no foundation to it. Foundation comes from facts, putting them on top of each other, and then you seeing them and you coming to your conclusion. Here's the final one. I will do everything I can to listen deeply and to make sure that you are feeling heard, whether or not I can do anything about your concerns or your feelings. The greatest gift that we can ever give another human being is to sit in silence, looking into their eyes and listen, and truly hear what they're asking. Because when we sit and we look into the eyes and we listen, we're seeing God. We're hearing God. Not only are we seeing and hearing God, but God is seeing and hearing God. Do you see how that flows? When we are so fully present in the moment of communicating that we release everything else in our world, and we're there eye to eye, ear to ear, heart to heart, the pure connection of oneness happens. That is true love. That is true intimacy. Into me I see. into you I see. I do that by not only knowing who you are, I do that how I speak to you, but more importantly, how I listen.